probably can't hear it, but I got some sick reggae music going on. It's some free music. It's pretty great. We're gonna fade it out so we can get right to it. Welcome to the
Okay.
Captain Jamtastic podcast. With me is Cheetos Rule. First off, thanks for joining me, Cheetos.
Thanks for having me, Jam.
Yeah, of course. You've been one of my favorite players the last few seasons when I've done extensive coverage, so I'm pretty excited for this. And that's not
Thank
me giving you lip service. I think you're one of the better players in MLTP.
you. Thank you, dude. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So we got this is going to be a little segment, even though this is only the second podcast. I'm already doing segments, I guess. So I'm going to try to ask 10 questions, all of which will hopefully be good questions. And it's going to be all about the K-popper season and then some other stuff too, because you've been a veteran of the MLTP scene, so I think you have some pretty good insight on everything that's going on. So
Awesome.
yeah, first up, let's talk about the squad. You got Was this a team you were happy being drafted to, K-poppers?
Well, I was drafted before the rest of the team.
Hmm.
So initially going for 90 tag coins, it's kind of like it kind of upsets like some of the top players.
Oh, for
Just
sure.
seeing captains waste like huge amounts of their tag coins
Yeah,
on
this
you.
wasn't even like one of
'Cause-
the main questions, but this is good to let's jump into this. So 90 tag coins, there is no max as far as I understand, but that's a huge amount regardless. I think that's one of the higher amounts that I ever see going. So that's a lot of pressure, I would assume.
Yeah, and it's not really the pressure, but it's you sort of realize that the your other two players on your team may not be super high caliber players, and there's going to be some sort of slack that you're going to have to pick up. So it's a little frustrating, and you wish like maybe the league would have a few less teams so that maybe the tag coins would be spread out a little bit more. But it is what it is.
Yeah. I understand like the league has to kind of adjust based off captain's skill level for the tag coins to not have it, but would it be a better strategy almost or a more interesting one to have like a max amount of tag coins that you could allocate to a specific player?
I think you sort of run into trouble there, having max bids on players,
Hmm.
especially when you have captains in varying degree of skill. If you sort of like leave it up to whoever bids the highest first, or you leave it up to like a spin of the wheel to decide, there's sort of that RNG where you might get like a player like Goober getting another top 10 player for 100, and then it's pretty much season over. Um,
So you're kind of firmly in the mindset of two top players can basically carry a team all the way. It's almost like the NBA.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If two top 10 players got on a team together, they'd probably carry and probably just dominate.
Yeah. That's true. But I also think, especially in Tag Pro, at least since I've been really getting into it, it seems like most teams have one, I would say, top 10 player. And then for the most part, I would say, if there's 12 teams or whatever, most teams, I would say like half of them have two top 10 players. It's just a matter of how well they blend together.
Yeah, and it sort of depends, like, if you get 2 top 10 offenders or if you're gonna split positions or, um, since it's me and Megatron on O, and we only had a few tag coins left over for the defense, it's kind of like an unbalanced team, and that sort of creates trouble sometimes.
Yeah, I would say you guys, you kind of lucked out. I've been high on Rakchi Man. I thought he got kind of jobbed last season in the fact that he was playing a lot of offense, and it didn't seem like that was his strongest or most preferable position. And I think he was kind of like a really good pickup for y'all
Mhm.
with
Yeah,
having as many tech.
he's definitely, surprising a few people, I think. I think a lot of people rate him, uh, like, I wouldn't say low, but they don't have him as, like, a top defender. Um, but, he's playing pretty well this season, so, I'm not disappointed that we got him. Definitely not disappointed.
Yeah, and Masaki's actually been performing extremely well too. He was let go. He kind of bounced around the season, the league last season, just kind of drop, pick up. But he's been really good for you guys. He kind of understands his role as just heavy prevent. I'm sure you'd like to see more tags from anyone playing defense, obviously, regardless. But being top three in prevent is huge. It gives you guys opportunities to get those caps as well.
Yeah, that's always good to have. The more prevent you have, the more time your flag's in, which is always good. So
Yeah. So let's
can't
jump
be
in.
too
This is going to be
excited about
question
that.
one here. So your team is kind of higher middle of the pack. If you were to look at League Tag Pro, I believe you're in. I want to say fourth place now, or you might still be third. Yeah, technically you're still third. You're
Mm.
tied with COA, 4-2-0-4. Um, I assume you like your playoff chances at this point. It seems very likely you're going to jump in.
Yeah, I don't exactly know how playoffs are going to work this season, how many teams are going to get in, but we have a you know pretty good chance of getting in. It's uh, it's just sort of where you're going to get in at this point, since there's like half the league is within 1 or 2 points.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I was under the impression it was going to be 8 teams like it usually was. I mean, last season it was 8, and there was only 10 total teams. Did they cut that down, or you're not sure?
I'm not exactly sure. I haven't been keeping up with CRC decisions, but
Hmm. Yeah, I thought
um,
when there was 10 teams, they might have wanted to cut it to 6, maybe. But with 12, it feels like 8. 8 is fine, especially when you looked at the records last season. There were you were in the top heavy teams. There was a few top heavy teams that were really really good, and then the rest of the league was pretty well below 500.
mhm,
That's not the case this season. There's been a lot of parity. Um,
yeah, a lot of 500 teams.
yeah, for sure. What would you say K-popers the team strengths and team weaknesses are if you had to identify them objectively?
Strengths would be where no one's really shy to sort of like give feedback on players making mistakes or things that we need to work on as a team to get better.
Okay.
Um, Sort of a weakness that we have though is a lot of the players on the team are kind of tilty and sometimes you get pretty snappy at each other in game.
Oh, that's
Kind of
interesting. Yeah, I was just about to
puts
say
people off.
those are like two counterproductive things because when you first said it, I was like, oh, so you have a good strong locker room, but then like if you're actually in the game, you don't want that tilt
Yeah,
factor.
no one really holds back with criticisms, but sometimes the delivery is
Yeah,
little
the
more than
timing
it
of it
needs to
needs
be.
to be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah, that's one of my least favorite things. Is at least my style is very low key, and I always try to keep the team together.
Mhm.
But it's hard when you have those players because that it comes from competitiveness, so it's not coming from a bad place, so to speak. Um,
Mhm.
it's not like out of malice. It's just players want to win, so they may need to figure out how to deliver it better. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. That's a
It's kinda
really
tough. It's in the moment too, so,
yeah.
get that they're frustrated, but,
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I
sometimes
wish
we
I
really
kind of
take a
covered you
step back.
guys all season now. That would have been really cool to like sit in and listen in and write something about that. That would have been really interesting.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
you are you happy with the team's performance thus far this season?
Um, I think it definitely could be better. I think we started off doing pretty well, I think. What do we do?
Yeah.
Uh,
So you started off the season against
Split and then a
Chennai.
sweep.
You split with Chennai, 10-6 win, 10-6 loss. Holden Gate, you won 5-3 and 11-8. That was before their big roster moves. Then Rank
Mhm.
Thugs, you played them close. You lost 9-7, and then you actually beat them in OT 8-7. That at the
Mhm.
time that was their only loss and remained their only loss until last week, I believe. Then you split with Rectile 6-4 9-0. Um, that was with Doris before Doris left, and then RHCP lost last week, which was kind of a stunner 6-3, and then you won 15-14 in OT to get some shine back on them.
Yeah. So I guess the last 3-ish weeks,
Mhm.
I sort of think we could have done a little bit more. Um there were like some really key mistakes that we made that through a couple of games. Um the rush game against Rank Thugs. I know we made a huge mistake on OD that sort of pushed that game into OT, I think.
Yeah.
Or it may have just lost us the game, I don't remember, but that was a pretty low moment for the team. Uh, the sort of at post game discussion was kind of heated, but
Yeah. Are
we have
there
a couple
any
other things.
maps that you guys kind of try to stay away from? Like, the way in my head I should specify is I kind of think of maps in two ways. There's like the really open offensive maps where it's like a lot of chasiness. I classify like Rush is kind of like that. And then on the, Transilio 2020 would kind of be like that. Haste a little bit. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have a map like Pilot 2.0, which just heavily leans defense. Do you guys have a preference or of which map that you?
Um, I think like the offense and the defense have like favors different maps.
Oh, for sure.
Um, Megatron and I think are pretty comfortable on Willow, but it's sometimes a little bit of a cluster on defense with all the bomb spawning. So I don't exactly know how the defense thinks about that. I talk to Megatron a lot, but
Yeah.
um, I think it's sort of a tough map for defense, and we struggled a little bit on that defensively. So
Do
I
you ever
guess
have updates? Because you were an All-Star defender, MVP caliber player just last season, and the season before playing defense. Is there discussions that you have with the defense where you say, "Hey, like this is how I would play it, just as an FYI," or do you give them any
uh
advice?
yeah, there's definitely some mistakes that I've seen that I make a comment on. Um, there's only so much you can do though. Some of that just comes down to like your experience, how many times you've been in that situation,
Yeah,
um, how many how many times you've seen other people handle that situation. Um, so I think some of those mistakes can just be worked out by playing more, which sometimes the team's not on enough to scrim. I don't think we've scrimmed the last like 2 weeks or something,
yeah.
but you know,
And I feel like you've kind of answered this throughout this conversation already. But are you happy overall with the performance this season?
yeah. Coming out of the draft, I think it could have gone either way. The first couple weeks were a little shaky, and then we sort of decided to play well and just made a few key mistakes. So I think we're a pretty good team. We just gotta work on the consistency, and we could end up being a top team this season.
Yeah, um, definitely. I mean, I'd be more surprised if you didn't somehow make the playoffs.
Yeah,
But I think you're going to make a lot of noise. I think it's one of the more interesting teams in regards to potential. Um, so yeah, I think like when you match up against the other top four teams, I should say, like COA, Rank Thugs, you already proved it against Rank Thugs. I think you can give ABO a run for their money, and against COA, I just would be really interested in seeing that matchup. Just because
yeah.
you may not
We're
see
kind of
it
lucky
as a
we don't have to play either of those teams.
well, maybe until the
Kind of lucked
playoffs.
out a little bit.
um, for your future, is there going to be another captain run in you?
I haven't ruled it out, and I sort of hate like ruling it out in the middle of the season, but
Sure.
yeah, it's definitely a possibility.
Nice.
I yeah.
I think. Well, I would be happy. Feels like you'd be a really good captain, so I would be thrilled to be on your team at some point. But don't worry, I'm not positioning to be in there. I probably am not going to be playing again. So, name your top five active, meaning this season, defensive players in the league.
um, I think a lot of people have sort of a clear front runner in Max.
Hmm.
Um, there's probably no question that he's going to be the defensive player of the season. And then there's a lot of players that I think are really close and could have a good week one week, and like they're just a little inconsistent. Mix plays sort of consistently pretty well, pretty strong defense. But I'd probably say Frothy's playing pretty well. Um,
Yeah, and they complement each other very well too, which is really scary for offenses.
mhm. Ty, I think, kind of goes under the radar. Doesn't really do anything super flashy, but just sort of plays like consistently solid defense.
Hmm.
And that's pretty true for like Curry too. Um, what was that, 4?
That's four. Yeah.
Man, all the other defenses are pretty solid this season.
Yeah, I mean, you got Wayne, you got Grumpy is Ty's partner.
I
Um,
think I've sort of been surprised by Ginny this season.
yeah,
Um,
Yeah,
him
that's a good
switching to
call.
defense was a little interesting,
Yeah, it
but,
was kind of surprising. And I remember Bambuzo actually posted in the thing that Ginny will be a top 5 defender this season, um, which I think at the
yeah, I
time
mean,
people were kind of surprised by.
yeah, and I mean, he's right there, so
Yeah, he's right
props
in
to
the
him.
conversation. He's lived up to it. You
Yeah,
heard it here
it's
first, Bam. Cheetos agrees with you.
yeah, I know for a fact that Ginny was someone that Megatron and I were looking at to try to pick up, and I think we were too late in deciding whether to go for him.
Yeah, yeah, that would have been an interesting fit on your team. I think that would have been. I don't know if it would have made you better or worse, but I think it would have been probably better. I think Ginny's a really good player. So,
Mhm.
um, is there any type of different strategy you've noticed from this season, uh, or something you would do differently as a captain? Um, Meaning, what you did last season with fire breathing rubber duckies.
Um, I think Megatron sort of fell in the trap that I did, which was spending a lot of tag coins on my partner.
Hmm.
Um, okay, then been a huge advocate for using most of your tag coins on the opposite position, uh, which I definitely think helps out a team. Sort of creates a balance. You have a strong player on both sides of the field.
Yeah,
So I guess that would be the one thing I would change, but um,
just
I
adjusting.
don't
Yeah.
think it's a huge deal. Yeah.
Do you prefer offense or defense? Because you, like Ginny, you kind of switch positions this season.
I don't know. It feels like every season, like when I play offense, it feels like, man, I'd be great playing defense this season. Like I'd keep the flag in, no one would ever get out. And then when I play defense, it'd be like, man, I probably would have kept that flag. I should play offense next season.
It's just, yeah, the grass is always greener, right?
So yeah, it's like you sort of pick one, and
Yeah.
the other one sort of looks tastier than the other. So
um, oh, that's always the unfortunate thing. I've always background on me when I came in. Um, it was one of those seasons where they were doing. I think one of the first seasons they did 90 minutes for B team,
hmm
and the team I was on had everybody was a defender. So it was my first season playing. And they were like, "Well, do you want to play offense?" And in my head, I was like, "Okay, well, I'll play," And my numbers were terrible because I was, but like I was playing like
just
90
didn't know what
minutes
to
a
do.
week. It's
Yeah.
just awful. But
Yeah.
so I've never had the opinion that I just kind of learned how to play offense better, and my defense has
hmm
definitely gotten better competitively. I don't think I'm a at best I would be like an NLTPA, but yeah, I don't have that problem of when people ask me what position I am. I'm always like, yeah, I'm definitely offense. You don't want to see me on defense. It's not great.
yeah. It
uh,
kinda helps in, like, playing TPM, so you don't get jammed up having 4 defenders on the same team, being able to switch positions.
yeah, that's true. There was one of the I haven't played TPM too much, but one of the games we had, we it was all offensive players, so I had to play defense, and I was like, this is not great.
Yeah, yeah, ending up with 4 pro tags on your team is a little tough. You can hold the
uh,
flag most of the game, but you're not gonna have that many capping
yeah,
opportunities.
can't cap. What's considered disappointing this season at this point for both you and for K-poppers?
Um, I guess disappointing would be to finish, like, not in the top 4.
Okay.
We're definitely capable of beating these last 2 teams pretty handily. So falling to them would be kind of disappointing, and then we'd have a tough playoff road ahead of us. So, yeah, hopefully we don't do that.
Yeah, so yeah, you have it's actually a tougher matchup than it seems like on paper. Smoothie Ping, they're just out of the playoffs right now, and they're really um, fighting for a spot. But GG has always been like a pretty good offensive player. Looks
Mhm,
like Sunchips is kind of coming into his own, and Pandora's been great for like the past 2 seasons. The big question is if he and Sevens can start to merge to start to lock down that defense to create more caps. Um, I think that's a tougher matchup than most people realize going in, but I think you're still definitely favored. I would say, at least for that matchup. I'm just putting my boys over because I announce most of their games. So.
Oh, you do? That's
Yeah. me and AK streams, and I've been announcing their games, so I'll be announcing you the next game for sure.
Nice.
Yeah. And then Boats and Hold, they just had such a weird season. They're 500, and like all the players have had a season off at least. So it's just a matter of whether or not they're going to click going into the playoffs. So basically,
Hmm.
kind of, I think the playoffs for you guys, you kind of get tested early. You get a basically you can lose one or two of these games. I mean, obviously you prefer not to, but to
Yeah.
these guys, it feels like playoff matchups.
Yeah. I guess bolts and holds have been pretty quiet. No one's really, you know, playing out of their mind.
Yeah,
Everyone's kind of got average stats.
yeah,
So that may be why I'm not sort of
definitely.
seeing them as a threat now. But
Yeah, and Hat's captaining them. A better season for him this season than last, at least in terms of record. They snuck into the playoffs last season, but they've already
hmm.
beaten the win total this season, so a bit of an upgrade for them. Not, but I mean, like that's such a silly thing to say because Hat was the only player that was on that last team. It's not like all these guys just bounce back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, so outside of your team, who do you think has been the most cohesive team?
Usually I would say a black or orange. Um,
Hmm.
I always see them on scrim and they're always together in a channel. And they just play really well together.
Oh, that's interesting. So I didn't know that they seem to be practicing or like at least hanging out a lot too.
Yeah, the I know Megatron's always asking us. A black or orange is asking us if we can scrim, and
Oh wow, yeah,
so they're always on looking for scrims. So they're definitely together on the same page, looking to have a strong run.
yeah, yeah. And their team's interesting because I didn't know too much about Mex or Frothy, but we discussed them before. They've just been ridiculous.
Yep.
BDL, I'm a big fan of personally, and I think I didn't expect him to be as good as he
Yeah,
has
the
been
X
on
factor
offense.
for sure.
And then Ballerina, same thing. Like I thought she would be good, but usually there's some players like that minors to majors jump is tough, you know.
Yep.
But
I knew she would be pretty good. I didn't think she would be, bordering on top of the leaderboard good.
yeah, and I think a lot of that, in fairness, has to do with the fact that that defense is so good that allows them
Hmm.
to play a lot more aggressively.
Yep.
Uh,
I
s-
totally agree.
okay, so season 20 MVB race. You've done more of like what I did, at least in terms of numbers, which is you're helping your team win, but it's not showing it in like the gasp and the niche whatnot as much as you would say. It almost feels like a support, quote unquote, role, which I have a lot of feelings on that word. I think like it's more of like a secondary player in which you're helping the team win, which is to me like a glue ball, more valuable piece. Has that made
Hmm.
you kind of change your view on how you view MVB races?
Um, I definitely don't think I'm having an MVP type season.
Hmm.
Um, I think there are some support players that could probably take that just get key returns on OD, and just typically don't make mistakes and prevent their team from making mistakes.
Yeah.
Um, but I think MVP typically should go to the player that's putting up the most stats for their team. Um,
Yeah, and in fairness, like usually when your stats are higher, you're kind of doing the most for your team.
right.
Um, and this season is like a pretty good, interesting markup of that. When you look at the top team, ABO, a lot of
Hmm.
people would just look and say, "Whoa, look at BDL's numbers," but like Mex has similar numbers on the defensive side. So for me, it's not like they really cancel each other out, but it's like, oh, that to me, it kind of opens the door to other people to be in that MVP conversation as well.
Yeah. I also think part of the MVP race, you see it typically go to offenders,
Hmm.
except in pretty extreme circumstances where defenders have phenomenal seasons.
Yeah,
I don't know if Mex is at that point, um, especially considering how well his offense is doing. I think one of them could probably win it, but um, he's definitely in the race for it.
yeah. Um, I think yeah, Mex is definitely in the conversation. And you're right, it usually does go to offense because it's easier to say like, oh, he had X amount of caps.
Mhm,
Versus like returns doesn't seem it feels like an NFL stat. Usually it's going to be a quarterback or running back
mhm,
who's the discussion, even though there's a whole other side of the game that's just as important. Um,
yep.
do you have any like a top three maybe of MVBs at this point?
Um, MVBs are kinda tough this season, I think.
Hmm.
Um, no one's I don't think anyone's been, like, extremely spectacular. There's definitely good teams with good players, but, if I had to pick, Ball the Liar, Ballerina are definitely in the running on that team. Um, but, I mean, after that, you sort of have to start looking at the defense. I don't think the offenses this season have been particularly spectacular.
Yeah, yeah. The numbers are
Um,
way down. Last season there was a lot of 50 cap scorers,
yeah.
and there's only I think maybe Ballerina and Ball Don't Lie are on pace for that, but everybody else doesn't seem like they're gonna clip 50.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure why. It might have to do with some of the map changes. People aren't used to it, don't know how to play it perfectly.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's fair. So the last one is kind of about like your history because you've been in MLTP since season 13, I want to say, maybe 14. Um,
in MLTP, my
MLTP meaning
first
sorry majors. So season 14, it looks like.
my first majors appearance was in season 14.
Yeah. What was your first like full time? Would you say 15? Because it looks like you kind of split with minors that season, or season
Um,
16.
15 I got called up. I think 16 was the first season I was drafted for majors.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, you've been in for a few seasons and you've seen a lot of players come through. Was there anyone you didn't expect to be good or not be good, but you didn't expect them to be as good as they are? Maybe.
Um, I don't think there's anyone really in majors. I guess one name would be Grumpy. He's sort of I've sort of seen him around a while, and he sort of moved up the ranks pretty steadily, and now is pretty consistently a good defender.
Yeah.
There's definitely more minors names that have sort of made the jump up into like a top tier position. I guess names like Cheese Doodle and
Sure. Yeah.
Omar, they've sort of had like a steeper climb. They've sort of advanced quicker than a lot of other players, which is interesting to see. They might be looking at a chance to play in a major spot next season.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing with majors. I feel like, at least in my opinion, I see a lot more. It's kind of like an NFL coaching carousel where somebody was pretty bad, as the Arizona head coach, but Green Bay is going to take a chance on him anyways, something like that. I've seen quite a few instances of that in the majors level where a player was either dropped and like let go of majors and then they're just there again next season. Is that
Mm.
more like familiarity, do you think?
Yeah, and sometimes people will have like that wake up call after they get dropped. They're like, "Man, I really need to play more, get
Yeah.
back on my game." I think Masaki did a little bit of that. He was sort of bouncing around, getting dropped and picked up, and then he was pretty much in ranked pugs every night
Hmm.
trying to work on the game.
Yeah, and that's been very helpful, the rank pugs, because it used to be like a tournament, which where you were kind of like there was no consistent time when you thought that would happen. It was just kind of up to the tournament runners' discretion. But now with ranked pugs, it's like, well, it's going to be open from this time to this time, so you're going to get high level competition as long as
Hmm.
your ELO is higher or whatever. Um, so yeah, again, you've been in MLT for a while. How have you noticed the league itself evolve since you've been playing?
um, it's definitely moved more defensively. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, with 3D becoming popular in the last couple seasons, there's really a huge point of emphasis of keeping the flag in, getting reset. Um, whereas before it was sort of like totally on the defense's back to keep the flag in and get it reset. Um, Other than that, really, it's tag pro can only be so complicated, and it just comes down to making the right decision.
Yeah, I think that yeah, that makes sense. I think I've run out of questions for you, so unless you have anything else you want to discuss.
Um, I don't really have anything.
Nothing? All right, fair enough. Well, thanks for joining me. And more importantly, I wish you guys luck for the rest of the season. I look forward to seeing you on the next week as I announce you, hopefully. And then, the last two games, I'm really rooting for you in the
Thank
playoffs
you.
as well.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Cheers, mate.